Hi, this is session 5 of Apigee Edge course for beginners. In this session, we will learn about how to send custom error message from Apigee Edge when an exception occurs at a policy in a flow. Okay, let's log in into Apigee Edge UI and see this in action. Log in into Apigee Edge and click API proxies. And if you could see, this is the API proxy which we have been developing in our course so far. In our previous video session, we have seen how to access an endpoint with the valid access token. So let's take the same example. First, let's generate the access token. So I'm going to generate it. So here we have the access token, and I'm going to invoke our default endpoint with this access token. So as we know, we have to add a bearer since this access token is a bearer type. So with this valid access token, I'm trying to hit our default endpoint and I'm able to get the response successfully from this endpoint. On the other hand, if I try to give some invalid access token, and I will get an error message from Apigee Edge. So this is the default error message generated by the policy at Apigee Edge. So what if we want to modify this error message? In case if we want to provide some custom error message instead of throwing this error message, then we can make use of rise fault policy in Apogee Edge. Let's see that in action. Navigate to our API proxy, and now navigate to develop tab and see the default endpoint. This is the one which we are trying to invoke, and if you could see in the endpoint, we are having a verify access token flow in the pre-flow section. So this actually checks whether our access token is valid or invalid. So after this step, if the access token is valid, then we don't have to do anything. On the other hand, if the access token is invalid, then we will have to send the custom error message back to our client application. So how can we check whether the verify access token step is pass or fail? So in order to identify that, let's trace the request now. So I'm going to give start trace session from Postman, give the request. Now if you could navigate here, our request will get registered or monitored. And if you could see, this policy is failed. So if you could click on this policy and come and see the result property, if you could see the result property, the value is false. So if this policy executed successfully, then the result value will be true. Since it got failed, the value of this result property is false. So based on this property value, we can identify whether the verify access token step is pass or fail. So let's navigate to develop tab and make the changes which we want. So now here, after this step, I'm going to add another step, and here I'm going to add a condition. So based on condition, this step has to get invoked. So in the condition, if the value of result equals false, or the value of result equals empty, or if the value of result equals null, then it means the verify access token step got failed. It means request as invalid access token. So in that case, we will have to send the custom error message back to the client. So we can send custom error message to the client by using raise fault policy. So let's add the raise fault policy here. So in policies section, let's add raise fault policy. So here it is raise fault policy. I'm going to name it as RF and unauthorized. So I'm going to add this policy, and now it has added it, and here we can give our custom error message. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide this message as unauthorized, and status code would be 401, which is unauthorized, and payload content I'm going to return a JSON response. Inside JSON, provide error tag. Inside that, can provide error code as 101, and error message as unauthorized. You can give any meaningful message you want, but I'm giving it as unauthorized. So slightly modify it so that it will look good. So now it looks better. Okay. So with these changes, I'm going to save our proxy revision as the separate one. Save as a new revision. So new revision as saved. So let's deploy the new revision. Select revision 4 and deploy it on the test environment. Oops. So we will have to include the policy which we want to invoke when this condition meets. So we have to invoke this policy. So let's provide the policy name here. So if this condition meets, this policy will get invoked. So let's save, deploy it in test. Okay, so our latest revision is deployed. With these changes, let's invoke the endpoint with the invalid access token and see what happens. If you could see, still we are getting the default error message generated by Apigee Edge, and we are not getting the custom error message which we have included in the raise fault policy. So why are we getting this? So let's go and check why we are getting it. And if you could navigate to what we do verify access token, here if you could see the property value of continue on error, it is false. So it means if this policy gets failed, then the subsequent step will not get invoked. But in our case, we are handling and we are passing our custom error message in the next step. So we will have to say this to true, so that even though if this step gets failed, then the subsequent request will get invoked. So I'm going to save these changes. Now revision 4 is saved and it is deployed. Now if you could invoke the same request, now we should be able to get the custom error message from the edge. Here we go. This is the custom error message which we have provided in the rise fault policy. So this is how we can configure or throw custom error message from Apigee Edge. In our next video session, we'll see how can we customize the response of the generated objects or generated properties. For an example, here if you could see, we have lot of properties available on the on generating access token. So if we want to expose only few properties, then we'll see how to achieve that in our next video session. That's it in this video. Thanks for watching and have a good day.